Hey everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
Welcome in to the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Ian Rivers, the co-host. Always a great day to be a Beaver. And Ian, if you watch the show on YouTube, when you search Beaver Banter, you can see we got this nice little logo here to give a shout out to our friends at Bemidji State University Alumni and Foundation. Big sponsors of the show. We always appreciate that. And now it just, it kind of gives us just an extra thing to kind of, make it look busy if you want to watch us on YouTube to distract from our faces. So that helps.
Absolutely.
It's like that, like in Anchorman 2, when they're trying to figure out, like, what if we just put everything on the screen? And they just kind of load up the screen with like tickers and graphics and things like that. Just like super sensory overload. It's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I think, what a more quotable movie than Anchorman 2. And by that, I mean, there's like two specific quotes.
Yeah. Pretty much it.
All right. Bemidji State University Alumni and Foundation, proud sponsors of the Beaver Banter podcast. We got a lot to get into to talk about women's soccer, just a completely dominating weekend, men's and women's hockey updates, football comes back off the bye, all that and more. But first, going to give a shout out to our friends at Bemidji State University Alumni and Foundation. Once a Beaver, always a Beaver. The Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is here to keep that green and white pride going strong for its 50,000 graduates around the world. From scholarships that open doors for students to events that bring BSU alumni and friends together, you can get connected, give back, and leave a legacy at Bemidji State. Whether you're a proud BSU grad, a local supporter, or just love cheering on the Beavers, come be a part of the action at bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. All right, Ian, here we go. A huge weekend for Bemidji State women's soccer. They do the right thing, and they get the win on Friday. And then on Sunday, they go on the road to Moorhead. It's a game Bemidji State's expected to win. But boy, did we not think they were going to win by this much. They hung a touchdown and a 2-point conversion on the Dragons.
Yeah, 8-0 win on Sunday against Moorhead. That is crazy. I mean,
insane, especially if you followed this show the last couple of years and heard our talkings of Bemidji State women's soccer, which is they're a defensive, slug it out team. Yeah, they'll take their opportunities on offense, but like they want to score a goal and play keep away and do all that stuff. No, they decided to just blitz them. 8-0.
Yeah. And I don't remember the last time BSU has scored that many goals in a game. They scored 7 against Crookston a couple of years ago, or that might have been last year. I'm not sure. But it just a crazy, crazy game. But they did play Crookston on Friday and won 2-0. It was pretty straightforward. I did have the opportunity to watch that one. Tessa Zeszkowski Higgins. I apologize if I am butchering your last name there, but you scored your first career goal, so I had to give you a shout out in the 41st minute of the game. And then Katrina Barthel gets her 8th of the season in the second half to make it a solid 2-0 victory on Friday. Again, Crookston, bottom team in the NSIC. You expect to take care of business there. And Moorhead is down in the standings as well. You kind of expect to take care of business there too, but you get a notification in the Discord. And I was telling CJ that like most, every other Sunday I have to work and the games are always like right before I get done. So like I have never had the opportunity to actually watch them, but I see the notification pop up in the Discord that says they won 8-0. And I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Surely you're talking about like football accidentally played a game against Moorhead and had the greatest defensive performance of all time. Like
it was like the club hockey team had a really good game or something like that.
Right, exactly. But I won't go through the assists on this because it's just going to be a lot. But
it's just the entire roster at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll give credit to some goal scorers, though. Kenzie Hare in the got the first one. Madison Frittel, Katrina Barthel got 2 in a row to make
Friend
it
of the Beaver Banter podcast, by the way,
Yep.
Katrina
3
Barthel.
goals on the weekend, and I think like 5 points as well, potentially 4 or 5 points when you add in the assists. Molly Bergstrand got her second of the season. Grace Cattell got her first. Brianna Stockey got 2 at the very end of the game for the Beavers to make it a 8-0 victory. And that's just a huge win. CJ, we talked off air a little bit, like how we can never remember exactly what the tiebreaker is for some of these things, but whether it's just goals scored or goal differential, maybe it's just straight up wins or head to head or something like that. We'll try to get to the bottom of it if it ends up mattering towards the end of the season, which we're slowly approaching. But that's just, it goes a long way towards some of those, even if it's a secondary tiebreaker. That's a big thing to get 8 goals in a game. And again, shutout, 2 shutouts in a row now for the Beavers. And I wanted to look back too, because this is the first time since 2022, CJ, that the Beavers have scored 2 or more goals in a game in 4 straight games. Wow. I looked last week just to see if I could say, oh, can they get 2 goals against Crookston? Like, when's the last time they scored this many goals in 3 straight games? Because, I know last season ended on a port, but they did have 3 games in a row last year. But it's been all the way back to 2022. That team, of course, one of the best we've seen in BSU's history. But they did it twice in that season, once in the regular season and then in the playoffs to win the semifinal match against Augustana 2-0. It took them double overtime against Minot State, but they did end up getting 2 goals in that second overtime period in the NSIC championship game. And then they won against Central Oklahoma 3-0 and a 4-2 double overtime victory against Minnesota State. So again, goal scoring off the charts in these last couple of weekends, but it's just huge for the Beavers because now it sets them up in a pretty clear top 4 spot. They're tied with St. Cloud State at 21 points. Augustana 1 point ahead of them with 22. And you've got a pretty clear lead over that 5th place game spot. You've got a 3-point buffer, and it's going to be a huge game this coming Friday against Concordia St. Paul because that is the team that is directly below you in the standings. So if you can come out with at least a point in that game, hopefully 3, but if you can come out with at least a point in that game, you've set yourself up in a pretty good spot. And this weekend is sneaky big weekend because the Beavers play Concordia St. Paul and then Winona State, who currently holds on to the 8th spot based off some tiebreakers there. They're tied with a couple other teams at 14 points, but the Beavers currently have a 7-point lead over that 9th seed, which would mean with just 5 games to go, it would be pretty hard to drop out of the playoff race, but let's not take anything for granted. Let's go take care of business this weekend against Concordia St. Paul and Winona State.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple things too when you look at this weekend of play for Bemidji State. One, of course, obviously is the goal kind of blasting that they had, which, my goodness, got to say it again. But also it's the fact of, like you said, Ian, this offense is capable of scoring multiple goals on any given night. And again, Bemidji State's had some great teams over the last 5 to 10 years. So this is not taking away anything, but it's just one of those where you can see the offense kind of joining with the defense a little bit here. And it's why we've seen such a resurgence out of this team is the fact that they still play their brand of defense, but they're able to score enough to keep teams honest on the other end. It's not grinding out, trying to win a 1-0 game where it's 0-0, through a majority of the match. And that's something where, when you just leave things to a 1-score game, there's a lot of things that can happen, but sometimes it can just get fluky. It can get to where it's like, Bemidji State played a great game, but it was 0-0 and just had a weird bounce off a leg and it snuck through the goal. And what are you going to do? Now you have a team that can go on the attack on offense, a team that knows how to score and able to keep other teams honest and kind of keep them off their backs. Bemidji State able to take advantage there. So that's huge. And like you said, Ian, it's a big weekend in the standings for Bemidji State women's soccer with the match against Concordia St. Paul, which is Friday at the Chet. 5:00 is when that match starts going to be. And then 1:00 on Sunday against Winona in Bemidji. And then they go on the road for a couple times and wrap up the season against University of Minnesota Duluth. So a lot of opportunity here for the taking for Bemidji State if they want to make the most of it. So looking ahead to Ian, or I shouldn't say looking ahead, looking behind rather, to last week's matches and last week's kind of breakdowns, we had the opportunity to talk with Katrina Bartheld of Bemidji State Women's Soccer, and go back and listen to the last show. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, and just kind of see some of the things she had to say. It was a really fun conversation just to get to talk with her and kind of what goes on in her head during matches, and also just kind of her pulse on the team and why she thinks they're being successful. And it was just a really cool conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check that out. One of my favorite player interviews we've ever had. It's awesome to get to talk to somebody from the soccer program finally, especially after they've been so successful for our tenure and even before we started doing this. It was really cool to see her and talk to her. So yeah, go check that out. Join the Discord. Do all that sort of thing. It's all worth it for the Beavers.
Right. And by the way, we have a little bit of a clip from the show last week. And by the way, this is kind of, I'm pulling it here from one of our clips on YouTube. Ian, let me know if I'm trying this out here. So let me know if you can't hear this. This is Katrina talking about kind of their match against Minnesota State and some of the big things that she had.
That first goal, honestly, I kind of just blanked. Like, I was kind of telling my friends, you know, you get in that rhythm when you're kind of in the flow, and like got the ball on my feet, and I was like, you know what? Like, I just saw, I think, 2 defenders in front of me. I was like, I'll take them on, see what happens. And, you know, just kind of went my way, I guess. I don't know. It wasn't anything where I, you know, was putting too much thought into it. I just decided to take them on the dribble because that's how I like to play. It's what I like to do. And it ended up working out for me. So that was good.
Yeah, I was going to say, did the film tell you that you could take on 4 or 5 Maverick defenders at once and beat them for a goal? Or
you know, I didn't even know it was that many. I thought there was like 2 of them, but it's funny to watch back now that I can see it.
Yeah, that was a really great kind of add-on, Ian, that you had, because she talked about scoring those goals. And you're like, by the way, did you notice that you went through like 5 people on your way to the net? And she was like, no, not, I didn't even realize that. I just thought I had a couple on me, which kind of just goes to show how good of a, you know, just how good of a player she's been.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now to get over double-digit goals on the season, I believe, unless I'm completely making that up. I can't remember what
also
I said.
NSIC Player of the Week.
Yeah, NSIC Player of the Week. Offensive maybe is.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Either way, you know, probably would have won Player of the Week just in general if that was a distinction in the award system. So yeah, 10 goals on the season. I'd have to go back and fact check this. I know that they did say at one point on the Friday broadcast, because it was at home against Crookston, that she had like 74 career points, which is just crazy. I know she only had 2 goals as a freshman. She might have added some assists in there too, but you know, already this season, 10 goals, and I mean, however many other assists that she's added. So I'd believe it if she was at 74 career points, which is just an astronomical number for as little, you know, for as much as we talk about, you know, how much this team doesn't score and how much they win these grinded out 1-0 games. They do have quite a few really high goal scorers over the last couple of years. So yeah. She's been phenomenal.
It's been great. Go back and listen to that full interview again on the Beaver Banter podcast. All right, Ian, any other soccer notes? Otherwise we'll kind of keep things rolling.
Season's winding down. Only 5 games left. These next 3 are going to be huge, especially when you're talking about home field advantage. 3 straight games against teams in the playoff picture for BSU between this week against Concordia St. Paul and Winona State, and then next week's first game is against Northern State before you round off the season with a couple of lowly opponents in the NSIC. So, yeah, best of luck this weekend. Let's hope to come out with at least 4 points. That would be a huge success on the weekend if they can get and keep this unbeaten streak alive.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, just to kind of bomb through some other things going on, the NSIC women's cross country championships meet is happening in Wayne, Nebraska on Friday at noon. It'll be a 6K race, and best of luck to the Beaver runners in that one. It'll be the final race of the season. And of course, believe if you do well at this one, you can qualify for certain races and things like that at kind of the national level. But it really does end. There's no like NCAA regional. It's pretty much your conference meet. And if you run a certain time, you can qualify for other races should that be the case. So best of luck to the women's cross country team on that one, as they have one more race to wrap up their season at the end of the week. And, really, Ian, just kind of looking at the other sports throughout the kind of a fall sports season, golf obviously wrapping up for the time being. And now we kind of shift our gears to Beaver volleyball a little bit. Now they've kind of been going along through the season. We mentioned there was a good opportunity for them to pick up, obviously 2 wins would be great over the weekend, but even just 1. And they were able to do that on Saturday at 2:00 at the BSU Gymnasium, getting a 4-set victory over Minnesota Crookston. They had a 4-set loss to MSU Moorhead on Thursday evening in Moorhead. And for the Beavers to get a win on Blockout Cancer Night, able to push their overall record to 6-13. They are 3-8 overall in the conference, 3-2 on the home floor as well, 3-3 in neutral site games, just kind of having a tough time picking things up on the road as well. But taking a look at some of the kind of big events or big lines to watch in that Crookston match, Bemidji State was able to get a win again in 4 sets. Lily Reese finishing with 21 kills. Grace Hofford, 12 kills with 4 blocks. Ava Eighthman, 6 kills, 2 blocks. And Ella Cratcheville having 6 kills as well in the match to kind of lead the Beavers through there. They were able to kind of, again, run about the same rate on errors. Bemidji State had a little bit better kill rate. And overall just kind of was able to get their offense moving just a little bit better. When you look at the assist numbers being up a little bit higher, Bemidji State definitely was able to get into the flow of their offense, get the things they wanted to do, and just come out with a win there. So even though they didn't get the 2 wins we wanted, they still are able to get at least 1 and kind of get another NSIC victory. And now it's a quick turnaround to a match on Tuesday night, which, again, by the time you're listening to this, will already have been done. They host, again, ranked Minnesota Duluth, and UMD kind of took care of the Beavers the first time they played them. So it'll be an uphill game, but they play really well at the BSU gym. So we'll see if we can give them as good of a match as possible. And then you turn around for a couple more home games. On Friday, they take on Wayne State for the Buc-ee's Food Pantry, sponsored by Lucan's Village Foods. And then you play Augustana on Saturday. And outside of that, after that, there's only 2 more home matches in the season after the weekend.
Yeah, season's starting to wind down. I'd say the conference season is about half over, maybe a little bit over half over.
Right.
Good to get a win this weekend. You know, what's the saying, CJ? You shoot for the moon so that you can land among the stars.
I think that's hung up on like every 4th grade teacher's classroom.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we were doing when we, predicted 2 wins this last weekend, or we're hoping for it. You know, you're happy to get anything you can, and now you got a little bit of a gauntlet to end your season out. So honestly, taking anything you can, force a couple of games to 5 sets, 4 sets, see if you can upset one of these teams that are hanging around the middle of the conference, or even at the top, see what this team can do under, first year head coach, Coach Butte, so that would be awesome.
Right. And again, tough stretch coming up here with some of these teams that you got on the docket, but this is the NSIC, and almost every match you play is going to be, is never going to be easy in this conference. So looking through all of that, I think that brings us back around to football, Ian, and Bemidji State football had the weekend off. So they were on their bye week, and now they get ready for the home stretch of the season. I think there's a world, Ian, where we kind of imagine BSU football being in kind of their peak over the last few years and being like, oh, this is a great time for a bye. It's late in the year. You get all healthy, and then you kind of go get ready for a stretch run that's kind of wide open. And now it's just a little bit like, all right, 4 more games left. Let's see what you got. And it kind of 2 games that are more winnable sandwiched in with 2 games that are going to be a little bit tougher. But let's just focus here on the University of Jamestown, who they're going to play at 1:00 on Saturday for the Hall of Fame game at Bemidji State. And this will be the first ever meeting between the Jimmies and the Beavers here in this one. And this is obviously Jamestown's first year in the NSIC, their first year in Division II football as is. Jamestown didn't necessarily have a bad football program, but they were an NAIA program, which just, obviously isn't quite at the same level of playing Valley City State twice every year and now having to kind of go through the gauntlet. Right now, Jamestown is 1-5 on the season. They won their first game of the year, I believe, against a random school out of nowhere, and then have been 0-5 to that point. And they're 0-2, or excuse me, they're 1-5 overall and 1-5 in conference play. And so
I think they beat UMary or Concordia. I think it was UMary though. Because look at their division record. Are they? No, they're 0-2 in division. So
they're 1-2. Yeah, Jamestown's 0-2 in the division. UMary's 1-2.
Concordia.
Let me look back.
I can look back here at the schedule.
Yeah, but either way, Jamestown is it's interesting, and Jamestown is a team that you kind of like. I think they can build back up. They obviously wanting to jump into Division II means there's probably a good chance that they want to invest in the programs and they want to get them up to a Division II level, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And this is a perfect opportunity for Bemidji State to strike and get another win on the season. Let's take a look at some of the kind of stats and break things down amongst the NSIC for the University of Jamestown to see where they're kind of at. It
was Concordia, by the way, not to cut you off in your train of thought, but a 33-22 win in St. Paul over Concordia.
Okay. All right. There you go. Jeez, Concordia. Come on, guys. All right. They're not even on our schedule this year. Unfortunate. All right. But like Bemidji State overall, in terms of points per game, averaging 20.3 points per game. Jamestown is worse with 17.3 points a game. So the offense, again, really kind of a spot that's had been tough to get going. And if you want to look at most points allowed in the conference, Jamestown's defense, not as bad as maybe you'd think. They average allowing 31 points a game. And lest you think, that's not that great of a number. Well, Bemidji State's at 32.3. So obviously there's a couple bad games mixed in there. It's not definitive, but just in the sense of like Jamestown's defense isn't necessarily the worst in the conference by any stretch. Neither is Bemidji State's, but the offense for Jamestown isn't that great. And Bemidji State's offense has been just a little bit better by the numbers, but also I think if you just by the vibes, the last 2 weeks for Bemidji State's offense has been such a breath of fresh air. And like you finally feel like they're starting to pick up momentum. And obviously it kind of rests on Connor Carver and how healthy he is and things like that. And we're obviously not really going to get an update until we get to game time and see if he's playing or see how banged up he is and things like that. That's kind of just the nature of college injuries, is they don't have to tell anybody. So they won't, because why would they? So a completely defensible position if you're a coach in terms of us being nosy and just want to know. Unfortunate. But overall with Bemidji State, I think this is a defense that had a couple good weeks stacked on top of each other. Ian, they're facing a little weaker opponent again, and another opportunity for an ascending Bemidji State offense to play really well. I mean, I hate to sound like a homer, but this is the Beaver Banter podcast. So like, what would we be if we predicted them to lose every week? Like, I really do feel like Bemidji State is an opportunity to get a win against Jamestown, get some confidence out of the bye week. You had 2 weeks to prepare for this team. And obviously Moorhead and UMD are good teams, but you end the season against UMary. There's a chance to go, 2-2 has got to be the expectation ending the season. But I think if you end this year 3-1, not that it makes up for everything that happened in the first half of the season, but I think you can go, this year was kind of a reloading year, and now we know what we have to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, just another injury to keep an eye on is Jake Hill. Something that got brought up in the Discord this week was that Jake Hill did leave that game with an injury and missed, again, I think all of the second half is what they were saying. And that's something that it's really hard to pick up on sometimes when you're watching on the broadcast, because they don't always, exactly go out there and spread out like, they list off every wide receiver, and it's
right.
Hard for
it's
them
not
to
like
pick
in the
up on
NFL where they have people buzzing in like, so-and-so's hurt, he's out for the game or something like that. Usually, and
especially because it was on the road, and so they're not really used to paying.
They're not paying attention to Bemidji State. Yeah,
they notice it when it's very clear the play that Carver gets hurt on, and that he's like the main point of the offense, and so like they notice when Carver gets hurt, but for Jake Hill, it wasn't quite as noticeable. But yeah, he's going to be up in the air as well for this week potentially. So keep an eye on both of them because weirdly enough, when both of those players go out, it was a very difficult time for Bemidji State to move the ball in the second half. So yeah, I think it's a winnable game. You can still do a little damage in the North. Like the North is still technically wide open. And they don't do the division standings by your overall conference record. They do it by your standings in the division, which the Beavers are 1-1. It's an unfortunate loss to Minot State in there, which, it'd be really cool if we were 2-0. I think we, depending on how they do the tiebreakers with 2-0 and 2-1 teams, we would be in first place in the North right now had we won that game and found a way. But yeah, there's still an opportunity there. You got to take it a week at a time. Focus on Jamestown, and then if you can upset, is it Duluth next or is it Moorhead? Yeah, if you can upset Moorhead, then maybe we'll talk about that. But for now, it's just about getting some wins and building on this momentum that the football team found over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. It really does. Again, not that they're humming and they're this perfect unit that's scoring all the time. Because like you said, once they lost Carver and Hill, they definitely kind of struggled to get things going on offense. And obviously Washington was hurt and things like that. Like they had to deal with some injuries and things like that to some players throughout the game. But they still are a good team, and they still have been able to pick up the pieces and at least kind of get in a groove offensively and just get things going enough. And the defense had a good game against Northern State. They had another good game, albeit against the backup quarterback, but still a good, solid effort against Wayne. So I'm just excited. About a month ago at this time when there wasn't really a ton of momentum in the program, or at least with the season, it was like, oh, geez, like, oh, my goodness. And then now after the last 2 weeks, it's like, I can't wait to see this team play coming out of the bye. Like last Saturday, I was like, what do I do? Like, I want to see how they play. So it'll be really fascinating. What really it's going to come down to is just that Bemidji State offense being able to roll. And I think the defense can keep things handled against this offense. But I think if you can see Bemidji State get another game where they get some confidence in the offense and can get rolling, you really have a chance to put yourself in a position to do something fun in the last month of the season, play spoiler against teams like UMD, and just see what happens heading into the final week of the season.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it all starts this Saturday at the Cheddar Dome. For a 1 p.m. kickoff. It's the Hall of Fame game. It's against the University of Jamestown. First time ever playing Jamestown. At least at the D2 level. I guess I didn't click on the history tab. And
yeah, there technically is. There are some games against them. Bemidji State is 4-0 all time against the University of Jamestown. Okay. Their last game was when, Ian?
Again, I'm not looking at it. I don't remember them ever playing them. I'm going to say probably 2006.
No, a lot further back than that.
Oh, really?
I believe at one point, I don't know if Bemidji State was NAIA or if they were one of those kind of like, they weren't quite NCAA yet. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember the history of Beaver sports quite off the top of my head. But the last matchup between these two teams was September 21st of 1956.
Whoa. Okay.
That's the last time these two teams played each other. The largest margin of victory was when Bemidji State beat Jamestown 26-0 on October 22nd of 1949. The first game played between these two teams was a 14-0 victory for Bemidji State on September 19th of 1941.
World War II era football, man.
They were in Leatherheads going at it on the shores of Lake Bemidji. It's especially when you consider those October matchups, it's cold, it's wet. Football.
Yeah.
So that's unless you're in Jamestown, in which case it's just windy. And then,
just straight wind.
Then you got to figure things out. But Bemidji State has shut them out twice. They've only allowed 19 points total to Jamestown.
Dang.
So there you go. Keep it going. Another shutout. Yeah, they haven't allowed never mind. I'm looking at this backwards. But yeah, they've only allowed 19 points since 1941 to this team. So gosh darn it. We're setting the over-under at 18.5. I'm going under.
Yes, sir.
Going under. We're going under. Do it. Do you think Bolte goes in there? Head coach Brent Bolte, and he goes in there and he's like, all right, boys, we're not just doing this for us. We're doing this for the Beavers of the past in this rivalry. We're doing it for old Tungsten O'Doyle, who after playing this football game, went into World War II and then came back and then, built log cabins or something like that. Or I don't know. Like,
100%.
This guy, I don't know. It's really fascinating to go back that far in Bemidji State's history. So it's really cool. I'll give him props for that. So I think Beavers win. I think they win 28-17.
Yeah, I think similar vein. I'll go 24-10. I think the defense has their way with the Jimmy's offense.
All right, there we go. All right, let's talk a little hockey. But before we do that, Ian, let's shout out our friends at Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation.
Do you want to be a part of the team behind the teams at Bemidji State? Join hundreds of dedicated fans when you donate to Beaver Athletics and help BSU pursue its next championship. Your gift can power your favorite program, establish a scholarship for a student athlete you get to meet, and so much more. Every dollar brings the Beavers closer to raising another trophy. You can add to the proud tradition of success at Bemidji State. So don't wait. Give today at bsualumni.org/Beavers. That's BSUALUMNI.org/BEAVERS.
All right, Ian, on the women's hockey front, Bemidji State is off this weekend. They're also off this upcoming weekend as well. They do not play until Halloween the following Friday when they go down to Mankato. So nothing to report on the women's hockey front. So let's spend this whole second half of the show talking about a great weekend of men's hockey. In it overall, it just could have gone a little better, I think.
Got a little stinky there. Yeah, it could have gotten a little better. I got talked off the ledge a little bit on the Discord on Friday night.
Good.
Because, I mean, I'm very reactionary.
Yeah. When Ian's in the moment, I've seen this guy watch sports. He gets he gets into it.
I do, and it's a fault of mine for sure. Like I do wish that I could be a little bit more level-headed about my takes when I'm.
Where's the fun in that?
watching
Where's the fun
something.
of watching sports if you're like, oh, what a very nice play. That was cool. Oh,
Yeah.
my team just lost on a heartbreaker. Well, it happens. And then just walk into the other room. Where's the fun in the
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. So like it does suck. This weekend kind of stunk. We knew it was a possibility because
we knew UMD was better than what they were a year ago.
yeah, well, and I thought they were better than St. Cloud State, and we kind of got manhandled by St. Cloud State. And you come out and you start really well on Friday night in Bemidji. You score 2 goals in the first 5 minutes of the game.
They scored their first goal like 30 seconds in.
2.5 minutes.
Pretty
but,
close.
yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah. No, it was early, and then basically double that time. 4:50 into the game, Vincent LaBelle gets his first career goal I can't remember if he scored against St. Cloud or if that was somebody else. I think that might have been Vigneault. So somebody in the Discord can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe it was his first career goal as a Beaver. So you're up 2-0 early in the game, and then just really unfortunate to end up letting that all go by the end of the first period. It was 3-2 at the end of the first period for the Bulldogs. You get a power play in the second period and you give up a shorthanded goal when you're trying to tie the game. It's like, it was kind of just a disaster, in the middle frame of that game really turned it on its head. And it was 6-3, by the end of the second period. Hudson Thornton scored right towards the end of the second period, and you're like, all right, well, we had that crazy comeback against Tech a couple years ago. Maybe we could do it again here. And, third period starts off with another Zam Plant power play goal, and it's 7-3, and you're like, all right, this is definitely over. And it's just defensively, it just was not good enough, and I know UMD has a really, really, really talented top line with the Plant brothers and with Jason Shagabe. This was still very disheartening to see because there are some talented offenses in the CCHA. We just saw an 11-2 victory for St. Thomas this weekend over Air Force. And Air Force, in my opinion, is a little bit better than, Alaska Anchorage, who we put up 11 goals on. Or that was only 9. We only scored 9 goals. So yeah, they got more than we did. Well, yeah, I was just thinking 11 goals total in the game. Disappointing from a defensive standpoint, to say the least. And then again on Saturday, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch this one, or maybe fortunately, as the Beavers give up 4 power play goals in this game. And it's just a far cry from, the Beavers that I went to school watching, where every year you see them up over 90% on the penalty kill most times. And I just don't know where that system has been over the last, 5 years or so. It's the power play, or the penalty kill especially, has not really been up to par. But Casper Magnuson got a goal in that game to make it 5-1. Yeah, just a disappointing weekend, unfortunately, for the Beavers. But, again, when I'm watching it, when I'm seeing it live and happening, it stinks. It really stinks. But, you got to take a step back sometimes after that's why we don't do a lot of live shows, directly after the game, because I don't know if we would be monetized if I had the opportunity to speak about the team on Friday evening. But yeah, it's disappointing. But, you look back to a couple seasons ago, we won the McNaughton Cup. And what can a couple of good weekends here do when we get into conference play? Because unfortunately for the CCHA, the out of conference has been pretty bad across the board outside of a couple teams. It's looking like it might be a one bid conference again. So when do you really have to be playing your best hockey? This coming weekend against Augustana and, every other conference team following them. But, a couple of years ago, you come into the new year with a couple of games against St. Cloud State. You lose both of them 6-1. You split against Ferris State in Big Rapids. Ferris State was not a good team at that time. You lose and tie to Michigan Tech. You win a shootout, so you take 2 points away from that. And then you split a weekend with an Augustana team who was in the first year of their Division I hockey program. And then following that, you don't lose a game for the remainder of the season until that unfortunate loss to Michigan Tech in the Mason Cup championship game. But you forget almost entirely about how dreadful January was for the Beavers because of the good stretch of play. So yes, when you take a step back, you're absolutely right. Everybody that was trying to calm me down and calm everybody else down that's freaking out about how the Beavers have looked over the last 2 weeks. You definitely do have an opportunity to right the ship. Augustana, though, coming up next, they're a tough cookie. I mean, they split with this Duluth team. Both games were on the road for them. They didn't have a home and home like the Beavers did. So it's going to be tough, but it's a good opportunity to get a potential hard reset on the season. You had a good opening weekend against UAA on the road. You've come back. These are 2 tough teams. St. Cloud's probably going to be a bottom tier NCHC team, but you put them in the CCHA, they might be one of the favorites, unfortunately. So they're still a good team, regardless of whether or not I think they're a little bit overrated, and we still probably shouldn't have been swept by them. When you compound these 2 weekends back to back on each other, it does frustrate me, and I do worry about this team, but it's still early. It's not even November. Jared, saying on the CCHA show a week ago, the panic button shouldn't even be in the same room as you, until at least November. And he's right about that. So there's still hope for this team. I still do think they have some good talent on offense. And if they can figure it out on the, defensive front, and I don't know, I'm not the guy to ask, unfortunately, about how the goaltender played in this game. I know there was a couple of really unfortunate bounces and the defense wasn't performing like swimmingly great, but yeah, at the end of the day, you probably want to see a little bit more out of the goaltending as well. So we'll see. It's a long season. We're still in October, but Augustana is going to be tough this weekend.
Well, and there is something to be said here too. And I know you're already talked off that ledge, but I think you've pretty much said everything, right? Like they've just put themselves in such bad positions with the penalties, and then the penalty kill just not being that spectacular in the first few weeks of the season, which you could say, hey, it's still early, like you said, but those are things that are concerning and things that Bemidji State is going to have to figure out come conference play time. But I will say, and again, everybody in the conference, a lot of the in-state rivalries are kind of played in the early part of the season. So I'm not saying that no other team has had to deal with this, but this is why you play some of those teams that are in the NCHC. It's why you typically, I know they have an exhibition with the Gophers coming up around New Year's time, but this is why you play the Gophers. It's why you play UND. It's why you play Minnesota Duluth. It's why you play St. Cloud to kind of figure out where your holes are. I talked to a lot of high school coaches, and obviously it's an apples to oranges comparison a little bit, but high school coaches always go, we actually want to play, like good schools, good programs go, we actually want to play teams that are good because they'll expose our weaknesses. They'll let us know where we need to figure things out. And sometimes people go, oh no, you only want to play teams you can win. So that way you just win a bunch of games, but you actually don't learn anything really about your team typically when you just demolish them, 9-2 against Anchorage or something like that. You need to play these couple games to know, hey, penalty kills, not great. We got to be more disciplined. We got to be more this. We got to be more that. We got to, find a way to keep those lucky bounces from popping in through the through the goaltender and stuff like that. So a lot of things to try and think about. But overall, yeah, I'm not like super. I'm concerned, obviously, just that Bemidji State is now in a 4-game losing streak. But you play a couple teams that are receiving votes at the time. You move on. You go into conference play, and you learn a little bit about yourself. And you kind of, obviously the bragging rights are important and they're fun to have, but you got to worry about your bragging rights against Augustana, Bowling Green, Lake State, Tech, all those schools that are kind of coming up on the docket here.
Yeah, exactly. Augustana at home at the Sanford Center this weekend. Plenty of early season action to see here. Not
First
back at
full
home.
Series at the Sanford Center for Augustana as a CCHA team. Because last year they just played one series in Augie and then the playoff series. But and then they did play in Bemidji, but it was not conference.
It was still that weird non-conference conference game, early in that tenure for Augie. So first conference matchup with Augustana in the CCHA. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, at the Sanford Center. You're right. So
Augustana looking for a little revenge after the Beavers bounced them in what has been kind of one of the more fun hockey weekends on the show when Bemidji State was able to come out and win that series against Augie. And definitely, obviously, it's not quite the same team from a year ago, but definitely that Augustana team is going to be looking for some revenge.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be a really tough weekend for the Beavers. Unfortunately, Augustana is very talented. That Josh Kotai and net is one of the best goaltenders, not only in the conference, but in the country. So he's going to be tough to crack for an offense that's looked inconsistent at times. Like 55 minutes of that game on Friday, we looked pretty inept on offense outside of a power play goal by Hudson Thornton. And then, it took until the middle of the third period to get one by Casper Magnuson on Saturday. So we'll see what we can do against, Augustana, but I don't know. I want to pick a split because they're at home and I think they can rebound from it. And you made a great point earlier about how you don't learn as much from that game against UAA, where it's like you win 9-2, but like you look at some of the underlying metrics and you definitely didn't play like you won 9-2. Like you got some fortunate bounces and you did capitalize on every opportunity you got to put the puck in the net. But, you can kind of overlook the fact that they didn't play a perfect game exactly when you win that big, and playing some of these teams like Duluth and St. Cloud can hopefully help expose some of the things you need to work on as a team going forward.
Yeah, exactly. So Bemidji State versus Augustana. Ian, what's the number one thing Bemidji State needs to do to win this series against Augie? Is it the penalty kill? Is that pretty much what we're looking at? Is it trying to find a little more goal scoring? Is it trying to do X or Y? What's kind of the biggest thing where it's like, I just want to see them do this well this weekend?
Well, yeah, I mean, staying out of the box would be pretty big. I mean, they gave up 4 penalties on Friday, and then on Saturday it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 penalties. So that's definitely not ideal. That doesn't help you play good defense. But yeah, staying out of the box is huge, as it is with pretty much every weekend. But I mean, if you give them an opportunity, just playing better defense, because there was a lot of opportunities where, I mean, Duluth has really talented forwards. Again, this top line is really good, but there was some times where they just kind of skated into the zone, took on a defender, beat the defender, made the goalie make a save. It's like, all right, we got to shut that down a little bit quicker and get some opportunities, get a body on a guy out in front of the net. Don't let him get that easy rebound, off of a shot from the point or something like that. There's a lot that this team has to work on, but yes, defensively, I think is going to be the key. Offensively, you got your work cut out for you. Again, playing a pretty good defensive team and Josh Kotai at the back, as the backstop of it is a very difficult thing to try to work on for the goal scorers. But yeah, defense is definitely where this team needs the most work right now after giving up, 12 goals on the weekend to a Minnesota Duluth team that, again, they're much improved from last year where they were just very, very, very young, but it's still alarm bells are ringing, but they're off in the distance for now.
Right. By the way, just give us an update quick, Ian. I know you weren't able to catch both of the games in their entirety, but what's that goaltender situation look like? Bemidji State still splitting time, or is somebody taking that job?
Max Hildebrand started both games this weekend, which was a little surprising. He got the Friday start, and then he got pulled eventually after giving up, I think it was the 5th or 6th goal, of the game. And it wasn't Rathan Robbins that came in. It was Trent Weemkin getting his first action for BSU. And then, Jared put out a tweet that says, hey, this is kind of what BSU thinks and what the coaching staff thinks of Max Hildebrand, going right back to him after he got chased on Friday night and giving him the start on Saturday against Minnesota Duluth. So I don't know. I think they do want to lean on Hildebrand. He's their big recruit out of the WHL, WHL goalie of the year. So how does a guy improve? He gets ice time. And I think that they just want to jump right in. I thought that it would be a little bit more splitting. Maybe we'll see them go back to Robbins a little bit. But it's kind of a wait and see at this point. I don't know if Robbins maybe picked up an injury we didn't know about, but it doesn't sound like it. So I don't know. It's going to be super interesting to see what they do, especially now that conference play is starting. The games, they always mean something, but they definitely mean a little bit more now. So, but like I said, the guy's a freshman. It kind of seems like they just want to get him experience now. And, if he's got to take his lumps early, they hope that it's going to help him, down the backstretch of his hopefully long career here at BSU.
Right. And it's no disrespect to the other goalies, but if you feel like all things are equal, give it to the young guy, because you at least are going to have more time for him on the ice to learn and to develop. And like you said, kind of go, and you might as well put him out there and see what happens and figure out, these first few series might be a little rough as we keep going through the first month of the season, but you hope by the time you get to kind of January that he gets his feet underneath him and you can kind of just roll and see what you got. Obviously, like you said, a big recruit and somebody that Bemidji State is very invested in their success. So why would you tell him, take another year and sit and learn? If you feel like he's talented and, even if maybe he's a step behind, he'll make it up with that ice time and with the development time and things like that. So any other news and notes, any other updates on the men's hockey team that we need to know about as they get ready for their series against Augie?
No, I don't think so. Best of luck this weekend. I was maybe planning on making a trip up for this game. It doesn't sound like it's going to work out, but hoping to get up there in late November. They have a couple series coming up in November that I do want to get back up to, because I've got to fix my losing streak of going to Beaver hockey games. I think it's been like 6 in a row that I've seen a loss. I know for sure it was the Mason Cup championship game, and then a couple of losses to St. Cloud State last year that I went to. Northern Michigan series I was at, they got swept. Or no, I wasn't at the Northern one. I was at the Ferris one where they got swept at home. And then I unfortunately saw them lose to Minnesota State last year in the Mason Cup semifinals. So I've got to get up there and break that streak. And if I don't, then I probably will never go to a hockey game again for the Beavers, because I must be the bad luck charm. So
don't go when they play Ferris.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
don't do it. You're just asking yourself for trouble.
It's like, do I go against a good team? So then I at least can say, well, if we lose, it's because we played a good team.
Right.
Because if I go against like Northern Michigan, who does look improved, but probably still one of the bottom 3 teams in the conference, I don't know. Maybe if we lose those games, it is me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So to prevent you from being banished to Beaver hockey, we got to get you up to find one. Last Beaver hockey game I went to, I was in attendance for. They won in that Lake State game in the CCHA semifinals, right before they lost to Tech in the Mason Cup championship game. I set the table for you, Ian, and you fumbled it. So back in the day, a couple years ago. So here's to figuring things out. Want to again thank Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation for sponsoring today's podcast. Go check out all the great things they are doing. Go check out that Katrina Barthel interview because it was really cool to get to chat with her and get to talk about why she chose Bemidji, what really is the area of the game she's grown the most. Her answer surprised me. And there's a couple other questions about, kind of her time at Bemidji State, her favorite memory or expectations for the team this season, and just a whole bunch more. So go check that out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. And by the way, check out the Beaver Banter Facebook and Twitter pages because we have content coming out. Clips of that interview come out there. We also have clips of the show that are out there. And again, if you want to see Ian in the middle of kind of a sports heater, Twitter is the place to go because that is where his thoughts get dumped into in the middle of a second period.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty brilliant to watch.
You also get to watch Ian throw smack to St. Thomas fans, which is always really fun.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was kind of hoping that, this would be like, at the end of the day, I just don't want them to win any CCHA hardware. It's like,
right.
Take that
take
going
it and
away.
Then run, be like, all right, we
like,
proved we're better than you all. Like, at least leave with your head in shame a little bit.
Yeah, like I will cheer for Michigan Tech to win, the McNaughton or Mason Cup if I have to this year, because I just don't want to see St. Thomas winning that
those
trophy.
Words could leave your mouth.
Right. They don't deserve it. They do not. So they
do not. Their new barn was ready to go. Did they play their first game there this weekend or over the last weekend?
No, I don't remember when they're opening that for.
I know that they must have opened it up for like media to like take some pictures and things like that because unfortunately it does look nice.
Yeah, it does. We'll see. Maybe I'll try to go to those games. We'll see how the Beavers
Let's
are
get Ian some press credentials. Let's get Ian some press credentials so he can freak out in the press box.
Yeah.
There's like guys covering for the Star Tribune, Pioneer Press in there. And then there's Ian after a second period power play goal allowed. And it's just like, what are we doing?
Are you kidding me?
This team's trash. No.
I am.
Ian's chirping Tommy fans from the press box. So
yeah, exactly.
That would be good. No, I remember one time I was working for Bemidji State in the sports information department, and I was doing a hockey game. Like we were taking stats, and our job, is just to keep an eye on things as the game's going on. And really, the big one is when something like when a goal is scored to like who's on the ice, like numbers. You got to say them immediately so you can do the plus minuses and things like that. And it was a game against UND, packed arena. And Bemidji State got a goal to either like put them up or maybe tie it late. It was a game Bemidji State ended up winning. Maybe it was a goal to like get them up by 2. And all I just remember is just as soon as they scored, I was like, yes. And I just looked at the person next to me and they're like, all right, man. Like, yeah, no cheering in the press box. I know. Gotta like, not that we have to be neutral in a sense, but it's like people are trying to get work done. Like you can't freak out.
Right.
But man, like scored a goal in a game where we ended up beating UND that year. So it was like, I don't really care. The whole arena got loud. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, I do care. I'm sorry if you were sitting next to me, but like, I'm not sorry in terms of like being passionate about the team having a good game against UND. So that's where I stand on that. But yeah, no, we need to find a way just to get to that barn, just to check it off a bucket list, since maybe there will be a non-conference matchup against St. Thomas.
I'm sure there will.
They leave, but like it might not be an every year thing. It might be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like maybe it will be. I don't know. It feels like they're gonna leave and immediately feel like they're too good for everybody. So, but anyway. Plus they also use it for basketball, so it'll be very fascinating. I've always wondered. Like, because they can use it for hockey. I always wonder, like, if St. Thomas and that new arena is going to be used to, like, host some kind of hockey. Obviously not the state tournament, because, like, the X hosts it, and, like, they just sell so many tickets, they're not going to move it to a smaller venue. But, like, there's got to be, like, a bunch of section hockey championships that are going to take place in that building.
I'm sure there will be. And it's difficult, too, because...
At least, like, some kind of showcases or some kind of tournament or, like, something. They're going to find a reason to put... Because if you're St. Thomas, you'd want that as a university to have a lot of good high school hockey teams playing in your building, because that's soft recruiting, basically, right? Like get them.
Yeah.
Bemidji State does it for football. Like that's why Bemidji State High School plays their games at the Chet. Because when like if you're the coaching staff, you get to see them every week. They're just right across the road. So
yeah. Free promotion. Why not?
Exactly. So. All right, that'll do it. This is today's episode of the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. We're out of here. We'll see you next time.